Hi everyone, I'm Dr. White. Welcome back to another week where you and I together encourage one another in our walk with Christ. Well, it is the end of 2019. This is the last video of the year, and next week will be 2020. And so I thought it would be very appropriate if we talked about goals and setting of goals. I had someone ask me a very interesting question today that honestly I hadn't really thought about because my mind had changed, or mindset had changed when it comes to setting goals. My friend asked me, have you set your 2020 goals yet? And my response was, no, I hadn't. Because as a Christian, my focus is on daily growth. It's not on a yearly plan. Here's something that's really fascinating. When you think about growth and you think about a new year, what do you most often hear? You most often hear people say, oh, I'm going to get my body together. I'm going to go back to the gym. So you hear a lot of gym memberships are purchased. And you also hear, oh, I'm going to start this new diet. I'm going to eat all I can for the last week. And then January 1, I'm cutting out sugar. I'm cutting out blah, blah, blah. Again, you hear a lot of these external focus that we understand through statistics. Within the first 2 weeks up to 90 days, a lot of these plans actually fail. So I'm not going to get into the why do these plans fail, but I want to get into the encouraging of changing our focus from an external yearly plan to a daily internal plan. So again, when my friend asked me the question, what are your 2020 goals? I hadn't thought of it because God had me on a daily growth throughout the entire year of 2019. And as I reflect at the end of the year, I'm going to, in prayer, see if spiritually, internally, I have changed from the beginning of the year, because it's this daily growth pattern that I'm hoping to see. So what do I mean by this spiritual daily growth? As you know, I always say every week, you need to read God's word on a regular basis, on a daily basis, and you need to read it for you. You need to understand what His word says through His word. So what does that mean? You interpret God's word through God's word. So we're not using the extra commentaries, we're not using the extra study Bibles, but we're digging into God's word and we're understanding it through His word. What begins to happen is the more you read His word every day, it becomes a mirror. So that mirror you put up in front of your face, and you are truly able to understand and see where you need to change. If God's word says something about gossip, which it does, then you can begin to make the necessary changes, not at the beginning of the year, but right then, right now, in that moment, every single day. So, are you getting what I'm saying? As you read God's word every day, you should have a plan every day as to how you're going to be different the very next day. Sometimes my prayer life will say something like this. I will say, Lord, help me to be better today than I was yesterday as a Christian. But the only way I can do that is not by osmosis, by holding the Bible up to me and saying, Lord, let those things just jump in my skin. But I do it through reading. I do it through study. And I take His word, I put it up to my face, and I look at the areas in my life every single day that don't align with what He's saying, and then I get convicted. That conviction should lead to action. And that action should lead to steps that you decide to put in place that day to make a difference for tomorrow. So I want to encourage you, as 2019 is ending, to not be so focused on a goal plan for 2020, but to be focused on a daily goal plan to align yourself to look more like Christ than you did the day before. because those are the plans that are going to live longer than the external plans that we're going to hear about failing about January 15th or February 1st. We want to have a goal that we look more like Christ today than we did yesterday. And how can we do that? The first step, I already gave it to you, is through His Word. You want to use His Word every day and ask yourself, am I doing those things or am I not doing those things? Because God will tell you don't or do. And if you're reading anywhere in His Word and it's giving you don't do this, I have to ask myself, am I doing those things? If I am, I need to correct them. Or if I'm reading an area in God's Word where He says do these things, then I need to ask myself, if I'm not, why? Am I having struggles with it? Which goes to my second point, accountability. You need to have people in your life, and I've said this before when I've talked about that Paul, Barnabas, Timothy relationship. Last week I asked you about accountability. The week before, I keep asking these questions about accountability. Who's going to hold you accountable for these daily goals that you set? Share them with someone. Have a prayer time that you can carve aside, maybe on a weekly basis. It would be great if you could find a friend you could do it every day and say, these are my goals for this day. You don't have to ask me, okay, tell me the details about it, but I would want you to ask me, did you meet what you said you were going to do? Were you able to accomplish the things that you purposed in your heart to God to change? And that's the type of accountability for goal setting on a daily basis that would be truly, truly fruitful. And then finally, guess what you're doing when you're doing all of these things? You're evangelizing. You are presenting the gospel to an unbelieving world that's going to set those external goals on January 1, 2020, and ask you those questions about what are your goals. You will have an opportunity to say, I'm not setting a yearly goal, but I change every day so I can align my life and my body and my mind to be more in tune and look more like Christ. What an amazing opportunity that you will then have to share the gospel, because you're going to look different. You're going to look a little peculiar. And that's what God has called us to do and to be. So, at the end of 2019, I want to encourage you to set goals every day to look more like Christ. Until next time.